controversial issues in the United States that also leak out worldwide. One of them, and one of the most popular, being capital punishment or the death penalty. When I first learned what the death penalty was, I was a lot younger, and the most prominent form of the death penalty at the time was the electric chair. I really couldn't grasp my mind around how a human being can sit another human being into a chair and electrocute them till they die. When we're little kids, our parents always tell us, don't stick your finger into the electrical outlet because you know it's going to hurt. And we've all been shocked once or twice in our lives, and we know it definitely doesn't feel good. So to strap somebody into a chair against their own will and jolt them with thousands of volts of electricity until they're no longer breathing and their heart's no longer beating just seems to me completely inhumane and barbaric. And now we have a more humane way of the death penalty, which is lethal injection. 36 states in the United States still have the death penalty, and 35 out of the 36, including Texas, use lethal injection. Nebraska is the only state in the U.S. that still uses the electric chair as capital punishment. The United States is one of 5 countries where 95% of all executions take place, and is one of the 3 industrialized nations that still have the death penalty. The other 2 are South Korea and Japan. All this death penalty and capital punishment information is on deathpenaltyinfo.org, and it has all these statistics along with other stats from the United States and around the world. In our state of Texas, 452 executions have taken place since 1976, and 755 took place before 1976. Right now, currently, there are 342 people on death row, 10 of them being women. During a lethal injection, when sentencing someone to death, there are 3 different kinds of chemicals that are administered through a needle into your body. One of them is sodium pentothal, the next is mercurium bromide, and potassium chloride. Sodium pentothal is anesthetic, mercurium bromide is the paralytic, and potassium chloride is the drug that actually stops your heart and kills you. In Texas, there have been 11 people throughout the time that Texas has had the death penalty. 11 people have been freed from the death penalty. The controversy in the death penalty comes from a lot of times religion and just people's personal opinions. Religion plays a huge role because Christians, which is the biggest form of religion in the United States, believe that you need to protect human life at all costs. Even if it's punishment for a crime being the reason that somebody dies, it's still wrong because it's intentionally taking away life. A lot of people just think it's ethically and morally wrong, including myself. I mean, most believe that it's not an effective means of punishment, that it's unnecessarily barbaric, it cheapens human life, and that it actually puts the government on the same level as the murderer. And that makes perfect sense, because they're murdering someone, just like that person murdered somebody else. Most people believe that it's punishment for what they did, and it helps the victim, like the person who has been murdered, their families feel that justice has been done if this person is sentenced to death. But financially, it also takes a huge toll, and it would just make more sense financially as well to just send them to life in prison. When they're sentenced to life in prison, their life is taken away. They're in there for life, and they're not going to be able to get out to commit this crime again. So I don't understand why the family doesn't feel just as good of them being in prison for life, pretty much them having no life. They're behind bars the rest of their life, however long that may be. But why they feel better if they die. Texas, death penalty cases cost way more than non-death penalty cases. It costs 3 times the cost of imprisoning someone in a single cell with the maximum security for 40 years. 3 times that amount for a death penalty case. One prime example in Texas was with Gray County and Lubbock County. In Gray County, with the case of Levi King, who is being sentenced to death, they spent $1 million on his case. That wasn't including appeals. With appeals, it went up to about $1.2 million. In Lubbock County, on a non-death penalty case, they spent about $3,000. To house this inmate for 1 year, it would cost them about $17,340. To house them for 40 years, it would cost about $700,000. That altogether is so much less than what they spent on one person on a death penalty case. If you just put that into perspective with the statistics from Texas, with the 452 executions after 76 and 755 before 76, that is a lot of money. It just seems like morally, ethically, and financially, it would just be better and more practical to sentence someone to life in prison than to use the death penalty. It just seems like if you weigh it out with all the statistics and information, that there are more pros than cons to sentencing somebody to life in prison.